So I hear that you want to get into a hobby that's kind of niche, but also kind of not niche anymore because of the meteoric rise of movies based off of the source material. So, like, it's in a weird spot of whether it's niche or not, but it's probably not that niche anymore because, again, meteoric rise of the movies based off the source material. So, but you want to get into it because you've heard good things. So, you've come to this video. Yeah, you want to get into reading comic books, the best mistake of your life. Look, I've been reading comic books for a while now. I feel I know enough to guide you on your journey into reading comic books and spending more money than you probably should on these silly pages of funny paper. First of all, however, we're going to have an ethical discussion on piracy. This is genuinely important. I want to discuss this because I found a definitely legally distinct version of me on a VHS tape that I found walking outside of an abandoned Chili's. So it's definitely not me, legally speaking. However, it is a videotape that I will play for you that demonstrates how to pirate comic books. So I feel it's important to talk on the efficacy of pirating comic books. Yeah, sometimes it's okay. That's my general overview. If you want to get deep down into it, I feel that pirating comic books is okay, but there are a few caveats. I believe when you can, it's best to support your local comic book stores. If you live in LA, a great recommendation is Heidi Ho. If you live in New York or London, there's Forbidden Planet at both of those. If you live in Sydney, Australia, I believe it's called King's Comics is there. It's fantastic. If you live in very specifically Savannah, Georgia, Planet Fun is fantastic and Nerdheim is great, but they overcharge on their Pokemon card products, so I'm a little mad at them. That is going to be a very specific last one, but I live there, so I have the most info. When possible, I think it's best to support these comic book stores because they're local, they're small business, it's fantastic. And honestly, Planet Fun is my favorite store in all of Savannah, so even if you aren't like into comic books, they have more stuff there. They sell like used video games and cool toys. Like, it's just a cool store to check out. Always a blast in there. I think it is okay to pirate comic books in a lot of situations, however, particularly when comic books are no longer being sold by the original publisher. Marvel is no longer selling a bunch of trade paperbacks. Take, for instance, Days of Future Past, the infamous X-Men run. It is famous everywhere because it is a huge, important X-Men run. However, it has not been sold by Marvel since 2014 when the movie tie-in came out. You're not going to find it in stores, but you can find it online from people who are going to sell it for more than it originally sold for. I think it is okay to pirate it in a case like that. Additionally, if something is currently available from like DC or Marvel, but is like way overpriced, I think that's mostly okay. And generally, I think if you're going to pirate something from DC or Marvel, the big uns, it's mostly okay. They are huge corporations that your piracy of one trade paperback will not financially ruin them. However, when you can, support independent artists. People like Benji Nate and Michael Sweater, who are in a relationship that I just realized that they're both great, however. And I do recommend not pirating their material. Just don't pirate like from independent artists. Again, some leeway, use your own brain and discretion. If you own something already, I think it's fine to pirate it because you already physically own the item. So pirating it's not really detracting anything. It's just a different way to experience it. Like, say for instance, I need pictures of the Fraction and Aha run of Hawkeye. I own that book physically. I need high quality pictures. I'm gonna get a digital, like, pirated copy that I can just take screens of. It's easy. And I already own it. But I think there's another wrinkle that we can introduce. If you are not currently in a financial situation where you can afford comic books, however you still want to get into the medium, that's another case where I think piracy is okay. See, I'm making a lot of cases for piracy to play out. I promise you there are cases I think you should buy, especially from independent or from local places. Independent artists, great people to support. Local stores, great to support. It's a dying industry. Basically, just use your brain and a bit of discretion. Big comic book publishing company that has not published this book in years is not going to lose a dime if you pirate it online. That's the gist of this argument. I don't even know what to say. That's it. Like, that's the efficacies of pirating, I think. Look, if you go into any discussion on comic books on like any social media platform, efficacy of piracy is brought up a lot because piracy is very common in comic book communities purely because the medium is so expensive to get into, and also it's just easier and more convenient to pirate a lot of things. I think if you pirate stuff, I'm not going to look at you any differently than if you don't. I think it's fine. These are just my own like moral ethics, if you really care, I guess. But with that spiel out of the way, support local comic book stores, support independent artists, buy trade paperbacks from local comic book stores when you can, and if you can't afford it, it's okay to pirate. And also, if it is not for sale by the current manufacturing publisher like DC or Marvel, I think that's another case it's okay to pirate. I'm going over the same stuff a lot, I'm realizing. I'm going to play for you this VHS I found that has a legally distinct person from me telling you how to pirate comic books. Enjoy! Hey guys, it's me, legally distinct Henepp. You can tell because my desk's on this side of the room now. Very different, I know. Look, I'm here to tell you all the ways to pirate comic books online. But since I'm legally distinct from Henepp, you can't actually sue Henepp because I'm a random person who's not actually named Henepp but is calling them legally distinct Henepp because I feel like it in this VHS tape that I'm going to leave on the side of the road outside of an abandoned Chili's. Go figure. It's a random coincidence, I'm sure, for whoever finds this tape that might or might not be called Henepp on a site called YouTube. Who knows? Who knows? Who has a single clue? Point is, if whoever happens to find this post is on the website, just don't sue them. Look, I'm going to go through 2 ways to pirate comic books. It's actually really simple. There's a site called readcomicsonline.com. It's kind of sketchy, so beware. Probably not super safe if you click anything that looks like it's dangerous. However, it'll be fine. Just be careful. You can choose what image quality you want the comics to be in. It's passable. It's perfectly fine. However, there is a better solution because that's a website. You can only use it if you have Wi-Fi. And let's say if you go on a plane ride or like a road trip. Are you going to read comics on your computer on a road trip? Probably not, but let's just imagine that you will. I'm going to suggest something that's going to sound complicated, but I promise it isn't. Go to www.getcomics.org. Don't know why or how it is a .org, but it is. So what you're going to do is you're going to go on there. You're going to just look up any comic you want, and it's going to download a file. You can download it from any one of the links. They're all perfectly safe, trust me. Just look up any comic you want, download it. It's going to download as a .cbr or cbz file, so it's going to be a little confusing, but on any of the comics that you download, if you just scroll down the page, you'll find a download link for something called YAC Reader Library. It's perfect. That is all you need. YAC Reader Library, like, it'll let you upload a folder where you can put all your CBR or CBZ files, and it'll update into the library. Then you can read them on your computer for free. It is perfect. There are no viruses attached. This is not sponsored or anything. It's just great. I'm going to leave a link in the description, is what I would say if I was posting this on YouTube. However, I'm legally distinct from whoever might or might not be called Henepp, so yeah. So, with all this, enjoy your not legally got gains. Stay cool and radical, and what's something I wouldn't say? Succulent. Thank you, legally distinct, but definitely not Henepp. You see, like, the desk was on the other side. It's crazy, I know. But I've told you a lot of how to actually get comic books. You can get them from local comic book stores. You can get them from Barnes & Nobles. I'm not going to throw shade at you if you do that. And you can pirate them. But that's just one half of the story. What comics do you actually read? That is actually pretty important. Look, I'm going to be honest here. Going to your local comic book store and just asking like an attendant for suggestions is a fantastic way to get into comics. You will have a wonderful conversation. I've done it before. I've had amazing conversations with attendants who are just nerding out with me on different runs. Like, oh, this Moon Knight run's great. Oh, this Squirrel Girl run is great. Oh, this run of Spider-Man's fantastic. Like, we're just nerding out on stuff, and it's a lot of fun. So if you feel up to it, just ask your comic book store like clerk, and they will give you great suggestions. However, if you want some more tailored suggestions, I can give a few suggestions on a few characters, so we're gonna do that. I recognize a lot of people who want to get into comics are very similarly to me, fans of Marvel movies, fans of the MCU. That's what I was before I was a fan of the comics. It's what got me into the comics. So, a few Marvel characters with great runs. Spider-Man has a bunch. If you want a good starting Spider-Man run, I would recommend Ultimate Spider-Man. It is fantastic. It's what inspired the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies. It kind of inspired Tom Holland, like ever so mildly, but very much not a lot. But it's a great run, well beloved by a lot of fans. Go read it. It's fantastic. Alternatively, you can start with the early stuff. Mighty Marvel Masterworks has the original runs for so many characters. I know that there's Black Panther, Thor, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers. Like, there are classic runs for countless characters. I believe there's the X-Men as well. But go read them. It's fun. It's campy. It's the old 60s comics. They print them out in order. There's like $10 or $12 per volume. There's like 10 comics per like each volume, and there's like 4 volumes of the Spider-Man one already, so it's great. It's a great place to jump into the early works. However, if you're not interested in that, and maybe you're coming from Spider-Verse, might I suggest Ultimate Spider-Man, not the Ultimate Spider-Man one with Peter Parker, but Ultimate Spider-Man with Miles Morales. Great run. Alternatively, the Spider-Verse comic has a lot of haters, but I am a fan of it. I think it's pretty alright. Spider-Gwen is pretty fun. That run is pretty good. Might I also suggest Spider-Man Life Story, a beloved fan favorite. Like, it's a great run. It's a what if of like what if Spider-Man aged in real time, so it's fun. And if you want something a little more recent, I'm going to say Spider-Man Red Goblin. Spider-Man Red Goblin is written by a very controversial Spider-Man author who did a lot that people didn't like, and some people aren't too hot on this run. It was the last book he wrote. It has its haters. I think it's pretty fun, and it's a pretty cool and interesting run. It's fun. If you want to, try it out. It could be fun for you too. Spider-Man has a ton of fans. But like, come on, he's like the most popular superhero next to Superman. But what about some Superman recommendations? I have not read a ton of DC, I'm going to be very honest, and I really want to read more DC, which is what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to do my best to give a few DC recommendations, starting with Superman. Superman Red and Blue is incredible. A wonderful anthology that is just pure Superman in my heart. This is perfect. All-Star Superman is the classic recommendation. It's an Elseworld Superman story. It's fantastic. The artwork is a little at times, but other than that, the story is great. I love it. Also, Superman for All Seasons. Fantastic story. Love the artwork in this one. It's just great Superman stuff. Superman has a lot of great runs. There's just so much to go around. But as I said, I haven't read too much of DC, and I'm trying to get into it more. So this is what I can suggest. If you want some more DC stuff, Batman Year One is a fantastic comic. Great for anyone trying to get into Batman comics. It's a perfect introduction. Also, The Long Halloween is so cool. Love it. Batman Nightfall is a classic Batman run. Let's see, other characters other than Batman and Superman. We've got Jamie Reyes, Blue Beetle. super fun run, love it. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, so good. Just read it if you can, love it. Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, great. The Authority, I haven't read it, but I've heard good things. And obviously, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is the third pillar of the DC's Holy Trinity, and I am very ashamed to say that I have not read any Wonder Woman books. There are a ton out there that I really want to read. You can find them as well. You can actually find any books for any character if you look up character and then best comics, or character best stories, character reading list. Here are my recommendations on screen now for Wonder Woman. I'm really trying to read more DC, I promise. Back to Marvel though. Marvel has a bunch of great stories, and ones that I am more familiar with. Ant-Man Anniversary is hilarious and fun. I love puns, so I love the title. Hawkeye by Fraction and Aha is so goddamn good. I recommend it to everyone. It's perfect. My favorite comic book of all time is Moon Knight by Lemire and Smallwood. I would not recommend it to start out with for Moon Knight, but it is fantastic, and you should work your way through Moon Knight. If you want some Moon Knight recommendations, Moon Knight Mark Spector's great. Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu's pretty fun. Moon Knight by Warren and Ellis, aka From the Dead, is really good. Again, maybe not the best place to start out. Moon Knight Crazy Runs in the Family is a little controversial at times, but also a decent place for new Moon Knight fans to start out. Work your way up to the Lemire and Smallwood stuff, because that stuff is fantastic. Thor, the Saga of Gore the God Butcher is super good. Love it. It's a great Thor run and inspired Love and Thunder, but it's actually really fantastic. There are so many good Marvel books. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, super fun, super charming, love it. Gwenpool, I believe it's the Unkillable or Unbelievable Gwenpool. It's something like that. It's on screen now because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Love it as well. It's super fun. If you want something a little bit of a deep cut, but it's so fun and just kind of funny, The Great Lakes Avengers is fucking hilarious. Start with Misassembled and then move on into the more modern stuff. I promise you, it is so good. And like I said earlier, if none of these interest you and you want a different character, that's totally alright. If you look up any character and then just like recommended comics or reading list or reading order, you're going to find tons of suggestions for any character that you could ever want for you to just pick up and read and find the best stories. Some of them are going to be a little worse than others because they're going to recommend stories to you that you probably shouldn't start out with. A lot of Moon Knight ones recommend the Lemire and Smallwood run as like their number one suggestion, and it is fantastic, but don't start out with it. It's really not a good place to start. But also, another great way to get into reading comics is to read graphic novels. Graphic novels are a huge reason that I'm into comic books nowadays. If you want some easy recommendations, my recommendation is anything by Brian Lee O'Malley. He's fantastic. His signature series, Scott Pilgrim, is my favorite graphic novel of all time, and it is beautiful. It's fantastic. But everyone knows that it's Scott Pilgrim. If you want one of his works that aren't as commonly recommended, Seconds is also fantastic, and I highly recommend that. But if you don't want anything by Brian Lee O'Malley, do I have some suggestions from you from our very own Gabby in a section that I'm going to call Gabby's Great Grabs, because they're great and you should read them if you're getting into comics and graphic novels. Their overall suggestion is Nimona. Now, I've only just started reading Nimona because the movie's out and I really want to watch the movie, but I want to see the book before I see the movie. But it is fucking amazing. It is so funny and heartwarming and cute and cool. Go read Nimona. It's my suggestion and Gabby's suggestion, but it's Gabby's overall suggestion. If you're looking for something a little more sci-fi, Gabby recommends Saga, a great little series, heavy sci-fi elements, perfect. If you're more into some cute romance, however, Gabby has 2 recommendations for you, including Heartstopper and Pumpkinheads. All I know about either of these is that Heartstopper just got a Netflix adaptation that I believe was pretty popular, so very exciting. If you just want a cute little like series, Gabby recommends Lumberjanes. I've heard a lot of good things about the Lumberjanes. Never read it myself, but I do want to get into it. Again, I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing. It's highly praised. If you want a good, real, true story, Persepolis is Gabby's recommendation, and it is also mine because Persepolis is fantastic, an incredible story that I recommend to anyone. It is a wonderfully told story, and I know there's a movie adaptation of it, and I'm dying to see it because I just hope it is as beautiful as the graphic novel. If you want some amazing adaptations, Gabby has 3 whole recommendations for you, including Percy Jackson, which I've heard great things about. I haven't actually read those books, but again, heard great things about them, even if they are middle grade. Mortal Instruments, which I know nothing about. I confused it with that movie that came out a while ago called Mortal Engines. And finally, The Graveyard Book, another book that I've heard amazing things about, but apparently 3 great adaptations. And finally, Gabby's recommendation, if you want a great author just in general, is Raina Telgemeier. You might notice her from a few of her famous books like Drama and Smile. I personally have read Smile when I was younger, and it is a really great introductory graphic novel. These are all fantastic suggestions. Use them as you please, because graphic novels are really a great way to get into reading comics. It's the same format and medium, but in a bit of a more novelized, just more easy to digest formula for someone who's just getting into it. Plus, in my experience, graphic novels are a little bit better priced. Like Seconds is real big and thick, and it's $25, I believe, which is the price of a normal trade paperback from Marvel, which is kind of ridiculous, honestly. That being said, this is how you get into comics. You read them, and truly, just ask someone at a local comic book shop. They will be more than happy to just tell you everything that they know. People love to talk about the things that they love. Look at YouTube. Look at how popular it is. Look at me just talking to you about how to get into reading comic books. People love talking about things that they love. So you know what? Moral of the story, go to your local comic book shops, have a nice conversation with the attendant, and you know what? Buy a good old comic. And maybe you'll find yourself in a new, fun, kind of expensive hobby. You never get used to how much it costs.